This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 304, Thriving Under Fire, an interview with John Faisandier.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and the first thing I'd like to do is to apologize. What about, you wonder? Well, it's twofold. First off, the sound of this episode is not at the quality that I expect. There were some weird scraping noises and dropouts, and we couldn't easily fix. And then secondly, you can't start an episode on apologies without having one, right? Our guest is John Faisandier. He's the author of the new book, Thriving Under Fire, and we talk about the fact that the company's sales staff is the face of the business. And salespeople get all the pent-up criticism customers experience. John and I talk about the dynamics of difficult conversation, and John shares practical tips sales professionals can practice to turn down the heat during a conversation. Now make sure and listen all the way to the end for Craig Klein's Sales Nexus Sales tip this week, Manage People, Not Customers, a perfect fit for this week's episode. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, John. Are you ready to babble?
Yes, I am, Pat. I'm ready to babble with you.
John, we've talked before, but I just got your book yesterday, actually. It's called Thriving Under Fire, Turn Difficult Customers into Business Success. Well, that sounds like that sounds like a very big challenge. Why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote it, Pat, because I've been running workshops for a number of years, helping people manage emotions in the workplace. And I wanted that message to get out to more people because it's such a vital thing, not only actually for business, but also for people's personal lives. And the principles that are in the book also pertain to really any relationship at all. But I did work a lot with people who were in sales and who were, I still do, customer service, all of that kind of thing. So that's really, I know that I've got this good message that makes a difference to people's lives. And that's what I want really people to get a hold of.
Yeah, in fact, I noticed right in your introduction, you said, let me quote you here, failing to handle angry and upset customers effectively takes a high personal toll on managers and staff alike. And salespeople really see this a lot because lots of times things are going wrong with the customer relationship that they have no control of. It's out of their hands. And very oftentimes they're the ones that got to apologize, even though they personally didn't do anything wrong.
Yes, that's right.
So what can you do? What can you do? What can a salesperson do about this situation?
Right. Well, the high toll that I talk about there and have in mind mostly is in the area of emotional energy that it takes up. Yes, it does cost money and you can lose sales and things like that. But so there's dealing with even just complaints is difficult. Because it's our brain reacts as if this is a personal attack on us, even when it's just attacking the business or just criticizing. So what the question is, what can people do? Well, the key thing is first of all to be able to manage your own emotions, to calm yourself down, because when somebody is critical, our amygdala, that's just the part of the brain that's really the security center that activates the fight-flight response, that part just goes into overdrive. Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, calls this the amygdala hijack of the brain. And what it means is all the energy goes into activating the amygdala, and the thinking part and the speaking part of the brain and the ability to make relationships, these parts get starved of oxygen and they don't work so well. This is why afterwards you go away and you say, oh, damn, I should have said this to that person, and you can think of all sorts of answers and explanations, but in the moment you can't because that part of your brain's simply not working. So what I teach it in the book and in these workshops and on the online program that I've got that people can access. How do you calm yourself down? And there's three things people can do. Would you like to hear them?
I would.
All right. Well, the first one, your grandmother might have learned this from her grandmother, and that is to breathe deeply. And when we breathe, when we're under attack, we want to take shallow breaths because we want urgent oxygen to the brain and for fight flight. But actually, somebody criticizing you is not, this is not a fight. They are simply saying something, giving you some feedback. So actually, you want to do the opposite of getting shallow breaths. You want to get deep breaths. This does a number of things. It gets more oxygen to the brain, but also activates the vagus nerve, which is one that goes right through the body and helps your whole body to calm down. So there you go. The first thing, breathe deeply from your belly. Second thing, name your feelings to yourself, mostly to yourself. If you name them out loud, that can cause more confusion. But it's about owning your feelings. Now, when you name your feelings, even if you don't get the exact feeling, but you say, I'm feeling scared, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'd hate to lose this contract, any of these sort of things, what that does, it activates the language center of the brain, or reactivates it, and helps you get going again. But also it brings the feelings. These feelings actually do belong to me, even though you might have said something that causes me to, that triggers me to get upset or to get worried or annoyed or angry or whatever. But actually the feelings are mine. So by naming them, I kind of, it changes that dynamic a lot.
Of course, that's not hard to do. It's easy to turn around and say when you slam that phone down, right? You go, I'm so pissed.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to do it while after you've slammed the phone down. You want to do it while the other person is giving you a hard time.
Dude, I'm so pissed at you. Like that?
That's right.
No.
So they're doing that. You're the worst person in the world. Your company's got no idea. I put this order in 3 weeks ago, and you said you'd deliver it, and you haven't delivered it. Now you've got a huge amount of time when somebody's saying that to be breathing down from your belly, naming your feelings, going, I hate that. I hate this. This feels like it's whatever it is you might be saying to yourself, so that you just end up, you've got much more control over yourself. And the third thing that will help you do that is to think about what else is going on for this other person. They haven't, their order hasn't arrived, or something's gone wrong like that. You go, I wonder why this is so important to them. And they've probably got their sales, their manager and their customers and their shareholders, whoever, all demanding things from them, let alone what's gone on with their family, before they got to work, and what else has happened, and they might have a sore tooth as well. And once you start thinking about that, the other person is distressed. Now we often, so rather than thinking this is something terrible that they're doing to me, you can think, actually, they're distressed. They're upset about something, and not just the mistake that I've made. So by thinking that way, that helps your brain to get going again in its more rational state, rather than just being, with the emotional brain taking over. So those are three things. Breathe deeply, name your feelings to yourself. So I am feeling upset, I'm worried, this is, I'm frustrated. And thirdly, I wonder what else is happening in this person's life. And just by thinking that will help your brain get going again.
So let's say you do this. What happens then?
So by doing that, you see, you've got a much better chance then of responding to the other person. We have words for people, the common things that you would say about somebody who's shouting at you, or who's really upset and criticizing your work. What are the words people generally use for these kind of customers? They're an idiot. They're boorish. There's probably a whole lot of swear words that we probably don't need to say.
They don't know what's good for them. They don't understand their own business. I'm surprised how they stay in business.
Yeah, that kind of thing. They're stupid, they're idiots, all of that kind of stuff. Now, when you think like that, it's very hard to be empathetic towards them. Whereas if you actually think that just by saying they are distressed and there's a whole lot of stuff going on in their lives, this is a difficult moment for them. Um, they're not necessarily always like this. So you're able to kind of think like that. What you come up with, what you're looking for is, what are they actually feeling right now? What's going on for them, and how can you recognize that? And so once you can only really do this when you're feeling a lot more calm. So you've calmed yourself down somewhat. It's still quite a tense situation, but the key to this for the other person is to be able to say to them, right, you're really under a lot of pressure at the moment, aren't you? You're really worried about this order. You are something along those lines. Not and the more direct and engaging you can say it without being judgmental, as in like you're an idiot, which if you haven't worked that out already, Pat, that doesn't work.
No, that don't work.
That doesn't work. You probably found that. But so you'd be just saying you're under a lot of stress right now. This is important to you. Now, the other part of that, of course, saying sorry. Is a way of acknowledging their emotion as well. I'm sorry that I've done this, especially if you have made a mistake. You want to admit that, but I'm sorry we haven't met your expectations, even though what we're doing is exactly what we said and even a lot more. So it's about really, I'm sorry that we've done this. This has really caused you a lot of inconvenience, hasn't it? Now, they might go, it certainly has. Now, but you allow time. Don't speak too much. Just give them time to vent, and just keep breathing yourself while you're doing that, and stay engaged with them. Like people shouting and screaming and saying things, that's not going to hurt you. And actually, once they do say that, and if you're there with them in a non-judgmental way, then there's a really good chance that they will calm down. So that's the key to it, I reckon.
I think this kind of stuff is really important because some of the easiest sales that you can make in a business is from your existing customers, upselling them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you stay engaged, then that's where you've got a chance of doing it, isn't it?
Right. And there's the other side of this too. If you get a good reference or testimonial out of them, that really helps earn other customers because you can use them as a reference, as I said. Or you could also get referrals out of them. Like they're so happy that they go tell all their friends.
Yeah. And it's about being able to be with people because it's, sales are all about relationships, isn't it? Really, you establish a relationship with somebody, even online, even if you're doing online sales, let alone any that involve direct contact with your customer. So when they experience you getting them, you get it that they are worried, you get it that they are under pressure, you get it that they are disappointed, and you do that in a way, in a sense, in a loving way, really. It was, even though sales manual wouldn't particularly say, you got to love all your customers. You don't have to like them, but in a sense, there's this much more that idea of loving people, just being able to be with them in their distress. That will really help them. It'll help them calm down, and they will realize that you really are a friend. These kind of relationships don't need lots and lots of time. They don't need lots of detail. You don't need to share a lot of stuff about going fishing or other activities. I mean, sometimes that helps. But in these moments where they are distressed and you can be present to them at a level of emotion or level of feeling, that's the thing that really strengthens relationships, especially where they have been upset and you've stayed present with them. I think that it's that's an incredibly powerful thing to do.
But it's got to be authentic. I know Comcast, who is my cable provider, their service stinks lots of times. You call them up and tell them a problem, and they'll say, it's almost like they're reading off the script, That's got to be so uncomfortable for you, or so inconvenient for you. I'm so
That's
sorry.
right. and you say, look, it's not uncomfortable. I just want it fixed. So the same happened with an insurance company that I had a builder cut through the shower, thing, and I rang them up, and I got all of that really soppy kind of, oh, that is so disappointing, And I go, no, I just want it fixed. So you've really got to tune in to what the other person's actually saying, not from some script.
No.
Say, when somebody rings up, always go to, oh, how terrible. If it's terrible, if you hear that, that's really, as you say, it's about being authentic and actually listening to them and hearing what they're saying, and that's what you know how to respond.
Well, there was something in your book that you had a model called PAC.
Yep.
Am I understanding it the same way? Maybe you could explain to the listeners.
It comes from transactional analysis. It stands for parent, adult, child. And at any given moment, we are in one of these three ego states: the parent ego state, the adult ego state, or the child ego state. Now, the parent ego state, but by and large, you want to do most of your business in the adult to adult ego state, even with your children. So that's where we're dealing with facts and figures and how much do you want and what's this worth, and yes, when can we do the delivery, and even isn't it a nice day today, and that kind of thing. So you're looking at the adult to adult. Now, the parent and the child, well, particularly they're divided up. There's the controlling parent or the critical parent. And this is what the way we enact this comes from our own parents, what we've taken in, even as little children. And it can be critical, judgmental. So you listen to the words that people use, the tone of voice, and their attitude and posture and gesture. So words like should, must, always, you never do this, you always do that, you always get it wrong, you never get it right. Should, must, all of these words are parent ego states words. And when you use those words, what you're inviting from the other person is a response from the adapted child ego state. And the adapted child would say things like, I'll try, but I'll fail, because trying isn't actually doing it, as opposed to, yes, I'll do that. No, I'll try and do it. But it's kind of, so they're a bit helpless and hopeless and sort of going, oh, I can't do this. And I don't know where, this is awful. And why does this always happen to me? So that's more like the child ego state. Now, you can invite somebody could be in the child ego state. This is an adult. So you hear this around the place. Oh, I don't know. Where are my keys? I can't find them. This happens to me every morning, and I'm running late for work now. And this is just not fair. Now, when somebody says that, what's a likely response from you?
It's going to be something like, "Why don't you keep putting them in the same place? How can you lose them? What's wrong with you?"
Absolutely. And that is parent ego state. Yeah. So somebody approaches you from the child, they're inviting a response from the parent. And of course, that only ends in tears, really, or that doesn't work. So there's another aspect of this. You can think not only of the controlling parent, but also the nurturing parent. And the nurturing parent acknowledges the emotion, listens, is empathic. And so you go, oh dear, that's not so good, is it? And then from the adult to adult, is there anything that you would like me to do? Is more from the adult. Or look, I would like to help you, but actually I have to go now. So good luck with finding them. You don't. So that's how that parent, adult, child works. And you can see children at a very young age take this in. If you've seen a little 4-year-old playing with her dollies, and she might have them there, her dolls all lined up and saying, naughty, naughty dolly, you'll be the death of me yet, you'll drive me to drink, and things like that, these 4-year-olds say. And the mother standing there going, oh my God, she's saying exactly what I say. And so that's how we learn these things.
Yeah, and my wife hears this in her school. She'll hear these kids say these outrageous things she knows that's coming from home. We're probably teaching our customers, we could be teaching our customers similar things too in our language to them. But this is how you're supposed to speak. And it may not be the most emotionally healthy.
Now, when somebody else is in that ego state, and when they're coming from either the child or the parent, you haven't delivered in, you people, you make all these promises and you just never deliver, that kind of thing. You go, whoa, that's child ego state. Well, you should have got your order in a lot earlier, which would be parent ego state.
Right.
As opposed to, rather than saying that, you can say, right, this is real. Sometimes you just get really frustrated with the whole thing, don't you? Yes, I do. And then you say, well, oh gosh, okay, and take your time, breathe, and this is what you need to do. Don't say it to them. So, well, let's have a look and see what we can do to sort it out, which is more from the adult to adult. When did you put the order in, and let's just go through the process, and have you ticked all the boxes, whatever it might be.
The book's called Thriving Under Fire, TUF, tough customers. If you could give our listeners one piece of advice they could use and take action on with tough customers this week, what would that be?
I think the big thing would be to acknowledge their emotion without judgment. Like, do that and try it out. You don't have to try it out on the toughest one, but just on anybody. Somehow you acknowledge it can actually be a positive thing as well. Like, gee, you're having a good day today, aren't you? You're really enjoying this. You really like what you've just bought. A lot of people do that naturally, but also then try it on some of the ones that are saying things that are difficult to normally you'd find difficult. Just remember, it's a sign of their distress. What they're saying is a sign of their distress. So if you can acknowledge that they are distressed in some way, and notice the difference that it has. Notice when they calm down just that little bit more. This will make this is real learning. If they get that much, everything else becomes just so much easier.
Awesome. John, how can people find you online? How can they find this book?
You can find me at my website is www.tuf.co.nz. And
NZ, like in New Zealand. You're in New Zealand.
I can speak American, because we would normally say NZ, but that might mean it's something else. But I'm getting the hang of this, so we go nz.co.nz, and that will take you to my to my website. Now, what I do have actually is a free ebook that I'm very happy to share with your listeners.
Cool.
Called How to Make an Effective Apology, because as you well know, in sales,
we worked on this.
In customer service, you need to apologize a lot.
We worked on this when we talked a few weeks ago. Because remember, I'd written that apology for the Tao Te Ching of sales, one of those posts. And You said, add one line, and I know it hurts you. And it was just,
yes.
Yeah, that was, yeah, you're good at this.
Well, thank you. I have been doing it for quite a while. I've been doing this training for 20 years, and so I'm and I love it, and I could do it for another 20 years, and so I'm about to really get it out there through doing some more digital marketing and making it much more available worldwide, and particularly into the United States. So if people sign up and get my ebook and give me their email address, there are a lot of free things that I write a lot, and a lot of tips about how to do things, how to manage these moments.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I'm really glad, John, that we were able to get our schedules aligned here. Thank you very much for babbling here with us on Sales Babble.
Yeah. Well, you're most welcome. And it's been a delight having a chat to you. And when we talked earlier, a few weeks back, it was great. We had a great conversation, and I'm sure there's many things that we could continue with, and maybe talk again around this topic as well.
And other topics too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot, isn't there? There's a lot about life, and it's about, to me, this is about living life as fully as we can, and just really enjoying the moment, and not being overcome, and developing that spontaneity.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Hey, you take care.
All right then, Pat. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, Craig. Are you ready to babble a Sales Nexus sales tip?
I am ready.
So what's this week's tip, Craig?
Manage people, not customers.
Manage people, not customers. So what do you mean by that?
Well, don't think of your customers just as customers, right? Think of them as individual people. Go beyond the products and services that you're selling. Go beyond the business that they're in. Think of them as human beings, that have families and homes and vacation plans and friends and hobbies. What excites them? It's not just their job. I can promise you that. Yeah. And then when you're talking about your products and services, always be able to articulate how is what your product or service is going to do for them going to help them do more of what they really love in their personal life.
Oh, right. I love it. That's a great tip. How can people find this sales tip online, Craig?
Just go to salesnexus.com/sales, and there you can get a PDF of all the Sales Babble sales tips, and you can get a copy of our 4 Steps to Market Domination guide.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. All right, Craig. Can't wait to hear next week's tip. You take care.
We'll see you next week.
As I mentioned in the episode, I wrote a post on this in the blog, The Tao Te Ching of Sales. And it was called The Perfect Apology, and it was published March 27th, 2013. And this is how it goes. I was wrong. Completely wrong. At the time, I had my reasons, but it doesn't change the fact I was wrong. How can I make this right? This is kind of apology I used to do all the time. I took complete and total ownership of it, even if I was innocent, even if I had nothing to do with it. I let them know that I heard them. I didn't try to mitigate it in any way. I took total ownership. And often whenever I did this, the customers were actually pretty good, and they appreciate that I heard them. So if you want to connect with John and get a copy of his free ebook, The Power Apology, 5 Steps to Genuine Apology, you can find him in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com/304, as well as Craig's Sales Nexus sales tip. If you have a question or a comment, don't hesitate to reach out and connect. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. Plus, share it with your friends. It's the best way to get out the word. Lastly, please support our sponsors. Please support Sales Nexus. It's what keeps Sales Babble going. Well, that's all I got for this week. Until next week, take care and have a highly profitable and a successful selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.